a lot of the things that we get personally offended by and the things that fracture our relationship are caused by clear biological and physiological reasons. A lot of these reasons are why our heart relationship is fractured and broken. And it's because we don't understand the context of what's going on with our teenagers. And we kind of lose a sense of empathy for where they are in their life. So I'm going to try to help us recreate that a little bit. And so let's walk through a little bit of what's going on inside them as they transition from a child to a teenager, to a young adult. Let's talk about the physical development. In early adolescence, the body undergoes more development than any other stage of life, except for from the ages of 0 to 2. Think about how much a 0 to 2-year-old changes. That's the only stage that's faster than what's happening at 11 and 13. And actually, a 3-year-old and a 13-year-old, they're going through some of the same stages. They're testing and exploring, and it's just that the 13-year-old has a lot more tools at his disposal in order to do that. If we don't understand a young teenager, or if you want to understand a young teenager, go to a 2-year-old class and check it out. It's the same behaviors, just at a different stage in life. They're really, really similar. And don't tell your teenager that I said that. The youth pastor up there at the church thinks that you're like a 2-year-old, and I agree with you. Don't do that. But I know you might. You're going to notice that they're clumsy. And the reason why they're clumsy is because their bones are growing faster than their muscles are. They look awkward to you at times, but they feel even more awkward. And we all understand that girls grow faster than the guys do, and it's kind of a fun thing to do if you ever get a chance to go and look at a 7th grade class, particularly a 7th grade gym class. It's a real shock to a man's self-esteem when you're getting whooped by the girls. It's not fun at all. But you'll see that in 7th grade. And we know that's happening, and that there's what we call this or what I like to call this hormone cocktail. And it's the body starting in the brain, initiates this flow of hormones to regulate growth. And there's a lot of things that happen and are happening during this process, and I'll spare you the biological parts of it. Remember, I'm not a scientist, nor do I claim to be a scientist, but I'll tell you this. These hormones are actually creating new grooves in the brain to help them think in a different way. It's literally reforming their brain, and their organs are getting bigger, and I want you to think of your young teenager as just being under construction. This hormone cocktail is completely revolutionizing their body, their mind, and their soul. The way they think, believe, and how they are physically. And by the way, it's not a perfect process by any means. Sometimes a gland will squirt out too much hormones, and sometimes there's not enough. And that's why sometimes you have a crazy, intense, emotional being, and then 5 minutes later it's like they took a downer, and you're like, how did that happen? There's a physiological change, a physiological reason for that. But sometimes they're screaming and yelling, and they're just all up in your face, and we're getting personally offended by that. And I'm not excusing them for yelling, nor should you. my big anthem for parents is have consistent consequences with as little emotion as possible. Because here's why. They're crazy emotional, and if you return that emotion with more emotion, all you're going to end up doing is creating World War III, and it's no good for anybody. One of the skills for you parents is this. Listen, we receive emotion, and then we go get that emotion out in a healthy way. You know, maybe you go work out, or you go punch the tree outside, or whatever you need to do. You know, the best, maybe you go beat the mess out of a pillow, or something like that. You know, I don't know. But when they bring it at you, you take it to another place. Don't take it back to them, because then you're going to disconnect the heart. You know, their prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain that handles all their executive functions, like planning and reasoning and anticipating and consequences. You know, they're not yet connected, and it won't connect until sometime in their early 20s. So here's the thing: legitimately, they haven't yet figured out how to process potential consequences. Like if you and I were going to go do something crazy, like jump out of a plane, you know, we would be thinking of all the horrible things that could happen to us. We might think, well, does my insurance cover this? You know, if I get hurt, you know, will it pay for an ambulance or maybe a medical flight or something like that? We're going to go through all these horrible things that might happen. And if we were 15, we would have already jumped out of the plane. You know, that's how it is. So let's recognize that. Sometimes you look at them and you think, you know, how in the world can they act like that? Where's your brain? How could you do that? You know, have you lost your mind? You know, and I wish they had the ability to just say back to us, no, my prefrontal cortex is just not connected yet. And you know, that would freak us out. And we'd be like, you know, oh, okay. But let me just say it for them. Their prefrontal cortex isn't connected yet. So help them out. One of the greatest gifts that you can give your teenager in this awkward stage is to constantly communicate to them that they're normal and that what they're going through is normal, and that, you know, just you are normal. Because in this stage, they're going to walk. These teenagers, they walk into a room, and where do they think all the eyes are? In their mind. They think it's all on them, right? I mean, do you remember that stage? When you were 13 and maybe you had a pimple on your nose and you walked into a room and you thought the whole world was zooming in on that pimple. And in all actuality, nobody knew that you had a pimple. Unless they were right up here. Nobody knew you had a pimple. And that expanded sense of self is something to consider. And it's one of the reasons that they act so crazy. If you have some understanding with that, then it's going to help you be a little bit more patient with them.